probably assume your city's massive grocery stores and endless delivery apps mean you will never go hungry. But here is the terrifying reality the supply chain executives are hiding from you. Those mega supermarkets aren't vaults of food. They are empty showrooms with a 72-hour countdown timer. And in 10 specific American cities, the logistics infrastructure guarantees the shelves will be stripped bare in under 6 hours. Is your city one of these concrete food deserts destined for mass starvation? You have been sold a lie about how the food system works. You walk down the aisles of a supercenter and see abundance, assuming there's a massive warehouse in the back room filled with extra pallets of supplies. There isn't. The back room is empty. Modern grocery stores operate on a brutal mathematical formula called just-in-time logistics. They carry exactly 3 days of inventory, replenished continuously by diesel trucks and digital networks. The moment the power grid fails permanently, the digital routing software crashes, the diesel pumps die, and that 3-day supply evaporates in a violent wave of panic buying. Before I expose the exact 10 cities where the starvation math hits zero first and the brutal logistics trap you are currently living in, smash that subscribe button. I decode the unforgiving physics of systemic collapse and extreme survival so you don't end up fighting your neighbors for a rotting can of beans when the trucks stop rolling for good. We must establish the absolute laws of the caloric wasteland. The human body can survive 3 weeks without food, but society cannot survive 3 days without a meal. Hunger is a biological ticking clock that rapidly deletes human morality. By hour 48 of a total grid collapse, your neighbors stop being polite citizens and become desperate animals hunting for calories. If you live in a region that produces more food than it consumes, like the agricultural heartland of Iowa, you have a massive caloric surplus and a chance at survival. But if you live in a city that consumes millions of calories a day while producing absolutely zero, you are sitting in a geographic death trap. If your zip code falls within one of these 10 cities, you have already lost the food war. Number 10. Denver, Colorado. The altitude bottleneck. Denver looks like a rugged, survival-friendly city surrounded by nature. It is actually a logistical nightmare completely dependent on an unbroken chain of diesel combustion. Denver sits at exactly 5,280 feet above sea level, isolated at the base of the Rocky Mountains. To feed the millions of people in the metro area, heavy freight trucks must constantly grind their way up steep elevation grades from the plains, burning massive amounts of fuel. In a grid-down scenario, especially during the winter, the plows stop clearing the passes. The fuel stations along the long, desolate stretches of Interstate 70 and Interstate 80 go dark. Denver is at the end of a very steep, very frozen driveway. When the trucks freeze on the plains, Denver's supermarket shelves empty in hours, leaving millions of people staring at snowy peaks with absolutely nothing to eat. Number 9. San Francisco, California. The peninsula of wealth and starvation. San Francisco represents the ultimate hubris of the modern digital age. The city boasts a population density of 18,000 people per square mile, yet its agricultural output is exactly zero. The people here have endless digital wealth, but you cannot eat cryptocurrency and you cannot eat code. San Francisco is geographically trapped on a peninsula, connected to the mainland by a handful of bridges that will instantly gridlock in an emergency. The city survives entirely by ordering food through apps, relying on a constant stream of delivery drivers crossing those bridges. When the grid dies, the apps die. The bridges become miles-long parking lots. The wealthy elite will suddenly realize their millions of dollars in the bank cannot buy a single grain of rice because the rice physically cannot reach the peninsula. Number 8. Atlanta, Georgia. The logistics hub paradox. This is the plot twist most survival analysts completely miss. Atlanta is the logistics heart of the American Southeast. It is surrounded by massive million-square-foot distribution warehouses. You would think this makes Atlanta safe. It actually guarantees starvation. These modern mega warehouses are entirely automated. They rely on complex robotics, barcode scanners, digital inventory trackers, and electric forklifts to find and move pallets of food. When the grid fails, the power of the grid fails, the robots freeze, the digital inventory systems vanish. You have tens of millions of calories sitting inside giant steel boxes, but the human workers have absolutely no way to manually locate, access or transport that food in the pitch black. The hub breaks down. Atlanta starves while surrounded by massive concrete monuments filled with rotting, inaccessible food. Number 7. Boston, Massachusetts, the end of the line. Look at the freight routes of the eastern seaboard. Boston is a terminal node. It is the end of a highly congested, crumbling infrastructure pipeline. Trucks carrying food from the agricultural centers of the country must fight their way through the massive urban sprawls of Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut just to reach Massachusetts. In a cascading grid failure, those trucks will never make it past the mid-Atlantic. They will be looted on the stalled highways of New Jersey or run dry of diesel in New York. Boston sits at the dead end of a broken conveyor belt. Its ancient, narrow streets will gridlock instantly, and the millions of residents packed into the tight New England corridor will strip the bodegas and supermarkets bare before the first day ends. Number 5. Honolulu, Hawaii, the maritime death sentence. The tourism industry calls it paradise, but from a survival perspective, it is a prison surrounded by an impassable moat. Honolulu is sitting 2,000 miles away from the nearest continental landmass. An astonishing 90% of Hawaii's food is imported by massive cargo ships. In a global grid collapse, the ports lose power, the cranes that lift the shipping containers freeze, the maritime navigation systems go blind, and the cargo ships simply stop arriving. You have 1 million people trapped on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You cannot forage enough tropical fruit or hunt enough feral pigs to feed 1 million starving tourists and residents. Once the shelves are stripped, the terrifying realization sets in. There is no countryside to retreat to, and there is no truck coming to save you. It is a closed-loop system of total caloric depletion. Number 4. Miami, Florida, the dead-end artery. Geography does not negotiate. Miami is boxed in by the Atlantic Ocean to the east and the impassable swamps of the Everglades to the west. It relies almost entirely on a single major artery, the Interstate 95 corridor, to import its processed food and goods. When a sudden grid collapse hits, traffic lights die, gas pumps fail, and 6 million people attempt to navigate the exact same concrete funnel. The inbound food trucks are instantly trapped behind an impenetrable wall of stalled vehicles trying to flee north. Miami's food supply is choked off miles outside the city limits. As the subtropical heat breeds disease and panic accelerates, the dense urban population will consume every calorie on the peninsula in a matter of days, leaving them stranded in a concrete swamp with no agricultural safety net. Number 3. Chicago, Illinois, the agricultural illusion. People look at Chicago on a map and think, it is in the Midwest, surrounded by farms, they'll be fine. This is the deadliest agricultural illusion in America. Yes, Illinois and the surrounding states grow millions of acres of crops, but they are not growing food for human consumption. They are growing massive fields of dent corn for ethanol production and feed soy for industrial livestock. You cannot survive by eating raw, unprocessed field corn. It has to be milled, processed, and cooked using industrial facilities that require massive amounts of electricity and natural gas. When the grid fails, the processing plants shut down. Chicago is a city of nearly 3 million people, trapped in a vertical, freezing environment, slowly starving to death while completely surrounded by millions of acres of crops they biologically cannot digest. Number 2. Los Angeles, California, the apex predator of urban collapse. There are 18 million people in the greater metropolitan area. The math of keeping 18 million people alive is staggering. It requires tens of thousands of heavy freight trucks entering the Los Angeles basin every single day just to maintain the baseline illusion of normalcy. When the electrical grid fails, the most notoriously gridlocked highway system on Earth turns into a permanent parking lot. The food trucks are paralyzed on the 405. Then the locust effect begins. 18 million people, realizing the trucks have stopped, will descend on the grocery stores. They will strip the shelves in hours. They will clear the convenience stores. They will empty the restaurant freezers. Within 48 hours, the Los Angeles basin becomes a caloric black hole. There is no water, no food, and no way to move 18 million hungry people through the stalled traffic. It is not a city. It is a starvation trap with an audience. Number 1. New York City, the vertical locust effect. Manhattan is a tiny sliver of rock packed with up to 4 million people during a normal workday. They live in sky-high apartments and rely on corner bodegas and micromarkets that have absolutely zero backroom storage space. Because real estate is so expensive, these stores rely entirely on daily delivery trucks crossing the bridges and tunnels to restock their tiny shelves. In a grid-down crisis, the authorities will immediately lock down the bridges to control the panic. The daily deliveries stop instantly. 4 million people are suddenly trapped on an island with no pantries, no basements, and no bulk food storage. By day 2, every scrap of food in every bodega, supermarket, and high-end restaurant is gone. New York City becomes the ultimate vertical food desert. Density is incredibly efficient when the grid is humming, but when the power dies, density is a multiplication factor for mass starvation. If you live in the suburbs surrounding these 10 cities, do not make the amateur mistake of thinking you are safe. Your nice cul-de-sac and your pantry full of snacks is not a sanctuary, it is a target. You have exactly 1 golden hour, 60 minutes from the moment the grid goes permanently dark, to get out of the metropolitan blast radius. Once the inner city populations realize the grocery stores are empty, the panic wave begins. Millions of desperate, starving people will flow outward like water, taking the path of least resistance, straight into the suburbs. They will not care about your fences, and they will not respect your property lines. You must understand the brutal mathematics of preservation. If you want to survive the collapse of the just-in-time delivery system, you cannot rely on the grocery store. You must build your own caloric fortress right now. You need foods that defy the laws of decomposition. You need bulk white rice stored in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, which will outlast you by 30 years because it has no oils to go rancid. You need pure rendered fat like ghee, which requires zero refrigeration and provides the critical calories your body needs to process protein without destroying your kidneys. You need to understand the science of pemmican, the preserved meat and fat matrix that fueled explorers for months at a time without spoiling. Stop treating your refrigerator like a magic box of endless food. It is just a ticking clock waiting for the power to fail. The infrastructure that feeds you is fragile, engineered for corporate profit, not for human resilience. Geography does not negotiate. Thermodynamics does not forgive. And the logistics supply chain absolutely does not care if you are hungry. Physics doesn't take bribes. Your choice. Make it count.